Greetings, friends and minions. My name is Rob Chappers, and it is my utmost pleasure today to teach you how to play any mode, in any key, with any scale shape. Now, before we get started, there are a few things, 3 things in fact, that you will need to have learnt in order to get as much information and use from this lesson as possible. The first thing is you need to learn your intervals, intervallic theory. So if you don't know your intervals, go and look them up on YouTube and Google. You'll find them everywhere. They're really, really simple to learn. Just chant them to yourself, plot them on the fretboard, give it a few weeks and you'll have them down. The next thing, number 2, is that you will need to know the names and the order of the modes. I'll give them to you right now. Just chant them and repeat them again and again and again. So the first one is Ionian, second is Dorian, third is Phrygian, the fourth is Lydian, the fifth is Mixolydian, the sixth is Aeolian, and the seventh is Locrian. Now, chant those, memorize specifically the order of these modes, and that's going to really help you to unlock and be successful with the information from this lesson. Now, the third thing that you need to know are the 7 modal scale shapes. You may have learned them as the G major scale shapes. Very often they're taught in G major. So the major scale shapes or the modal shapes, there are 7 of them, and they're 3 notes per string. You have to learn those to really get the best from this lesson. So if you haven't learned all that, go and look it up, and if you have, let's proceed. Just a quick note to say that a lot of what you're going to learn here may go against the grain of what you've traditionally been taught before by teachers or things you've read. I learnt this information working as a session player for Universal Records. Let's just talk about what the end game result is. Here's what you should achieve after many years of practice. You should be able to play any mode wherever your hand is. You shouldn't have to move to a shape that you're familiar with in order to play a mode. So if my hand was right here on G and I wanted to play any mode, I should just be able to play it right here on the spot, rather than go to my favourite scale shape and work it out from there. In other words, the hand should only move for an artistic choice reason, rather than to find a safe place to play. So traditionally, modes are taught with 7 separate scale shapes, and you're told there's a shape per mode, and you place that modal shape on top of the root and you get your mode. Now this is really the absolute beginning of modal application, and it's very limiting at first because you get one shape. If you're playing in G and you want to play Mixolydian, you have to play the Mixolydian shape here, which is great if you're here, but if you're here, you've got to jump down to play that chosen scale shape following that line of thought. So here's the thing. These 7 modal shapes are actually one big shape chopped up into 7 parts. There is only really, in Western music, genuinely one scale. It's the diatonic scale, and we make it sound like everything else by moving it around the root note we're implying. So for example, your pentatonics, your blues scales, your Mixolydian, Aeolian, Dorian, they're all one shape that we're moving around and we're chopping it into 7 parts. So have a little think about that. And now I'm going to give you the 3-point treasure-seeking Chappers method to play any mode, in any key, with any scale shape. Now you can step through this with me as I'm teaching you. I'm going to give you time in between so that you can do this with me right now. Let's start by tuning the guitar. I'm tuned to standard. Here is an E chord. By the way, I'm using a Chapman Guitars ML1. These are now sold out, and the ML2 is in production. It's very exciting. I'm also using a Marshall JCM 800 and a Hardwire reverb pedal, which is very nice. Sounds like this. Okay, so I'm going to start by giving you a scale shape that we're going to use to play our modes with. Now, I want you to realise right now that the scale shape I'm using could be any scale shape. And at the end of this lesson, you're going to understand how to choose your own scale shapes to play any of the modes. But to begin with, because we need to be using the same shape, I'm going to give you a shape. And because I'm a big Satriani and Vi fan and Van Halen fan and Betancourt fan, we're going to use a long 3-octave scale shape to play any of our modes with. Just this one shape, okay? And this is how you play the shape. I think I need a different guitar. That's better. Bit of PRS action. So, here's the scale shape for you, nice and slow. We're going to do this in, I think we're going to do this in G, just for the hell of it, because G's a nice note to start with. And take it nice and slow, get this scale worked over a few times, pause the lesson if you need to, and then carry on. So, starts on a G, first finger. We're going to slide that tone to our second note. By the way, this is an Aeolian scale. If you say this is your root, this is an Aeolian scale, minor scale, natural minor scale. So, then the second finger comes down, little finger. First finger comes down to the A string. Second finger, little finger. We're then going to slide with our little finger. That was a tone. First finger comes down. Second finger, little finger. Down a string to the G string. First finger. Second finger, little finger. Slide it up a tone. Don't forget the change in tuning, so the B string is now going to be the 10th fret. Second finger, little finger, down a string, second finger, little finger, and then slide it or tap a tone up. So you should get this as your scale shape. I want you to realise that what we've got here is a repeating pattern. We're starting on a root note, we're sliding, we're doing what I call a minor shape, followed by a minor shape, slide, minor shape, slide, minor shape, slide. So it's a nice, easy pattern, but it covers a lot of ground, which is really useful when you're doing long legato-y phrases within a mode. So that's stage one, you've learnt the scale shape. Practice that, pause if you need to, we're going to go on to stage two. So, stage two, we're going to pick a mode. Now this could be any mode, but to make sure we're in unison, we're going to pick a mode together. And I'm just going to say we're going to play Lydian, for example. And because you can only hear a mode if you drone a root note, we're going to play an E. So I can drone this big fat E string here. Step three is, in your mind, place your mode on your chosen key. So pick a key. My key was E. So in my mind I'm thinking, well, Lydian, or the fourth step of our diatonic scale, sits on basically my nut, or the 12th fret, where E lives. So Lydian's right here. Now I'm then going to count along the diatonic modal major scale steps until I find the shape of scale that I am using. Now we're using a 3-octave Aeolian based shape if the root note was on Aeolian. So Lydian's on E, so that's step number 4. So we're looking for 5, which if you know your major scale steps is a tone away up here on F sharp, and then we're looking for 6, which is Aeolian, and 6 is a tone away here on this big fat G sharp note. So what we're going to do in a nutshell is we're going to play E Lydian using that 3-octave Aeolian scale shape that I just taught you. Don't get confused or lost. If you get stuck or a bit confused, pause the video, rewind, do a bit of research, come back to me here, okay? So, Lydian is on E. That's step 4 of our major scale sequence. So 5 is a tone up. If you know your steps, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And 6, Aeolian, is a tone up again on G sharp. In other words, if I play Aeolian on G sharp, Just like that, it sounds like a scale. But if I drove my E, it is very much Lydian. Okay, let's do another one. Let's maybe do Mixolydian, just because it's a popular mode, and then we'll do Dorian afterwards. So Mixolydian in the key of E. We're going to be using the same scale shape, this 3-octave Aeolian shape. Don't forget, it could be any scale shape. So first step, choose your key. We've chosen E. Second step, choose your mode. We've chosen Mixolydian, and we're placing it on our root note. So I'm saying Mixolydian, or the 5th degree of the diatonic modes, sits on my E root. The next step, look for the scale you're using or favouring. So I'm using the 3-octave Aeolian scale. So 5, go up a tone to 6. So in other words, F sharp Aeolian is the same as E Mixolydian. So, in fact, let's write a riff in Mixolydian and E. So let's just test that. Here's our E, and here is F sharp minor. So just out of interest, let's take a look at the intervals we're making using our minor shaped scale. So for example, E is our root for Mixolydian. We're looking for a major scale with a flattened 7th. So the first note of our scale shape is a 2, slide it for a 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. It's Mixolydian, but I'm using that minor shape. Very exciting. One more, let's do Dorian, just because loads of guys use Dorian. And again, we'll do it in E, just so I can drone this big fat E string underneath me. Choose a key, E. Choose a mode, Dorian. Place Dorian on your root, and we're going to look for the scale we're using. We're using an Aeolian scale. So Dorian is here. Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian. In other words, if I play B minor over an E, I'm playing E Dorian. You've got 3 modes there. The method was pick a key, pick a mode, place the mode on your key, and then search, counting along the major scale diatonic steps to find the scale you're using. Let's use, instead of our 3-octave minor scale, let's use, for example, a regular major scale shape that most of you will know. So here's my 3-note per string major scale shape. And for example, if I'm rooting on the A, then we know the first note would yield Ionian, for example. So here's an A. If I root on the second note, of course, I'm playing Dorian. So if I want to play an A still but play Dorian, I can just shift that scale back 2 steps, so 2 semitones, and it will now be A Dorian. Exactly the same scale shape, but I'm playing A Dorian. Very exciting, very simple. Okay, here's the thing. Every single one of your 7 scale shapes can be any mode when you shift them around. They're like chameleons. So say, for example, you locked all those 7 scale shapes into one big blob of a scale, and you take the second shape, Dorian, and place it on the root. all of a sudden they all become Dorian scales. All of them. You can use any of them, and they're Dorian, locked into position. If all of those 7 scales were locked into position and they don't move and you move them around, and I want to play Mixolydian, if I place the 5th position on the root, chick, all of a sudden they all become Mixolydian. In other words, these modal scale shapes are nothing. They are no sound until we choose where to place our root, and then they all become that mode, because the intervallics line up to cause that modal effect. Okay, so finally, to really help you buckle down and get to grips with a bit of this modal application, I'm going to set you some homework. This is the first time I've ever set homework over YouTube, but I think it's about time. So it's going to be a series of yes or no questions, the answers to which I will paste in the more information section just below me on YouTube. So don't look until you've really answered them yourself, and just only use them if you think you need to. So I'll guide you through the first question, and then the others will just be without guidance for you to work out yourself, okay? So the first question, with guidance, is this. I'm playing in A Dorian, and I want to play Dorian, but my hand is up here playing lead solo. So I want to use a scale that works right here. What would you do? Well, let's have a look at this. Dorian is on A, and if I carry along my diatonic steps, I get from Dorian to Phrygian, to Lydian, to Mixolydian, to Aeolian, exactly where I am here. So the natural minor scale, shape 6, and even the pentatonic scale, which is a broken down form of the Aeolian, would give me Dorian in A. In other words, E minor is A Dorian. So if I want to play A Dorian, but I'm down here, I can just use E minor. Okay, question 2. I'm in a key of G minor, but I'm right down at the end of the headstock playing some open chords, something like... And I don't want to have to move up to play a G minor scale starting on my G. I want to play it right where I am. What would I play? Okay, question 3. B Phrygian contains the same notes as G major. Yes or no? If A minor is the relative minor to C major, what is C major's relative Lydian? And my final question for you, B major is the same as E Lydian. Yes or no? Take it easy. Enjoy the questions, take your time, work them through, count through the diatonic scale and work out where everything is. And then start to bring it into your practical playing. So if you play a lot of minor scale, in blues for example, you're on 6, you can go back and find your 5, you can go forward and find your 7. Think about where you are in relation to the modes whenever you're playing. And by the way, feel free to post your answers as video responses or comments to this video. Take it easy. Chappers out.